and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup.
Wishing you a happy Bisexual Awareness Week.
And speaking very quickly, because this week we have a very special treat for you. We are mourning the death of Edward Albee, and playwright and activist, and we have the great privilege of bringing you a repeat of our interview with him in 2005. Yes, that's what we looked like 11 years ago. 36 minutes of us with Edward Albee that will be the back half of this show. So we're going to do the news quickly and then revel in the genius of Edward Albee.
And it couldn't be more timely in terms of the politics that we're dealing with.
Yep.
Also in the news, New York's Chelsea neighborhood is hit with a terrorist bombing, possibly targeted because of our gay population.
Oh.
We don't know.
No, we don't. But we survived, so thank you all for asking.
We live on 23rd Street.
Yeah. Trump's proposed family leave policy won't cover gay male couples, and Trump has criticized the only debate moderator who is openly gay.
The Charlotte, North Carolina Chamber of Commerce proposed a compromise to end the boycotts of North Carolina, expecting LGBT people to accept fewer protections. Charlotte says no.
Thank you, Charlotte. The Obama administration bans discrimination against LGBT people in credit and in homeless shelters, and tells us how to make schools safer for LGBT youth.
Spain's out gay football referee returns to work and again amidst renewed threats. And well, that's another headline.
The first out woman in combat from the United Kingdom is transgender.
And the great-great-great-grandson of Queen Victoria comes out.
Sweden sets a new standard in the fight against HIV.
And lots of LGBT aspects to the 2015 Emmy Awards.
We'll save our comments about Edward Albee until our introduction to the tape of the interview. So I guess the Chelsea bombing is at the top of the headlines. That was Saturday night. I got a lot of notes from people. I was out of town, but mainly we live about 3/4 of a mile down 23rd Street from it.
But I had to, look, it was certainly disrupted all of Lower New York for a couple of weeks. And thank you for your checking up on us. Look, he had a high school girlfriend who gave an interview, who bore him a child, by the way, who said he really hated the fact, gay people in the West and all this kind of stuff. That's as much as we know. But so do people in most Abrahamic religions, if they are from a conservative bent.
She also hadn't seen him for 2 years, so we don't know what his motive was. He did attempt to set off explosives and succeeded with one of them in the Chelsea neighborhood, which is a substantially gay neighborhood. Although someone put out a tweet and said, of course, the important thing about this is that 23rd and 6th is not Chelsea. But it is. But it's not the heart of the community. But onward.
Well, let's move on because, I put on Facebook this week.
There was also this phony Tumblr gay confession thing, which was nonsense.
Yes. But of course, I posted on Facebook this week that if Trump wins, no more bombs will go off anywhere, not in the United States or anywhere in the world, because he's strong and everybody will be afraid to cross him.
Well, Trump did put out his child care proposal.
I'm kidding.
That only gives child care help to mothers, not to gay men who have kids. It turns out he says he gives child care to his company, but it's only to the guests at his hotels and not to his employees.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's all not. And then that Hillary has no plan. I mean,
well, actually,
is there any end to your shamelessness?
Actually, fundamentalists are now giving Hillary a second look since she rose from the dead in the past week. But Trump ended his birther thing, right? And
not really.
Wait a minute. He he owes $5 million to the charity of Obama's choice. He said, if it can be proven that he was born here, I will pay $5 million to the charity of his choice.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he's gaming the debate system, and he says he doesn't want Anderson Cooper to moderate the debate. Could it be because he's gay? He says because CNN is too devoted to Clinton, which I hardly see.
Ridiculous, and that Lester Holt is a Democrat when in fact he's a registered Republican. I can't wait to hear what he says about Chris Wallace. All right. In the Obama administration, meanwhile, has in the Housing and Urban Development Department published a new rule that puts forth non-discrimination on the basis of gender identity or expression for federally funded homeless shelters.
And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, a U.S. government agency, is that has to make sure that banks and lenders and financial corporations, companies treat us fairly. They have banned discrimination against LGBTQ people
Under the sex discrimination rules, and this will include credit, loans, mortgages, et cetera. And they were provoked to do so by a question from Sage.
Right.
Sage wrote them a question, a note.
Services and advocacy for GLBT elders.
Yes, and said, what about LGBT people under your credit rules? And they talked about it and decided, yes, we're covered under the sex discrimination rules, which will immediately be challenged by the right wing.
Well, there are only 9 states in the D.C. that actually protect us in credit. And the right wing will probably also want to challenge the Department of Education, which has released its Safe Place to Learn online resource. If you sign up for our emails, go to our website, www.gayusatv.org. Sign up for our emails. You'll get links directly to these resources in our email every week. So sign up, please.
All right. I want to talk about this right-wing vast conspiracy, because what we've seen the right wing do with abortion ever since Roe v. Wade is try to chip away at people's reproductive rights.
No, they have.
And they've succeeded in a lot of ways. So they have now taken that blueprint and they're applying it directly to us. And they are filing lawsuits all over the country to try to chip away at laws that assert non-discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity.
Calligrapher someplace. Where was that?
Colorado.
Colorado. A preemptive lawsuit.
Yes.
I never want to be forced to do any calligraphy for gays.
Yes, because I only want to uphold my religious beliefs.
The judge wouldn't give him an injunction.
In Texas, actually, I think the calligrapher was somewhere else. There's another lawsuit by a graphic designer in Colorado asserting that, because there's no judgment on that yet. But this is all being filed by the Alliance Defending Freedom, the right-wing organization.
That was Arizona.
Yep.
Christian calligrapher.
Colorado, they've filed another suit. Texas and 4 other states are suing to challenge Obamacare's non-discrimination provisions for sexual orientation and gender identity on the basis of their religious freedom. They're taking this religious freedom definition and just running down every single law and rule they can find anywhere to try to cut us out of it.
Well, but in Wisconsin, a federal court ruled that a Wisconsin school must immediately halt its discriminatory policy of singling out a transgender boy, Ashton Whitaker, which was forcing him to use a restroom separate from all other students. So that's a win.
And we have a win in Pennsylvania, where the town of Wilkes-Barre has adopted a non-discrimination law covering sexual orientation and gender identity.
And of course, big news was from North Carolina this week. I mean, the Chamber of Commerce wanted to say, come on, Charlotte, get rid of your law and we'll get rid of HB 2. And that's the blackmail. And Charlotte said no. They're also going through this tremendous racial unrest. They're going to repeal an anti-discrimination statute in the midst of that. Are you kidding?
In Florida, a minister who is also called a court specialist working for Broward County is suing the county clerk, that's Fort Lauderdale, because he fears he would be fired for not issuing licenses to same-sex couples or do ceremonies. He says that's religious discrimination because he is a minister.
No.
You're working for the government.
I'll tell you what religious discrimination is. The former music director at the Church of St. Mary in Providence, Rhode Island, he was fired because he got married to the person he loves, a man, and he'd been there for a while, and they fired him.
In California, Equality California has withdrawn its endorsements from 6 assembly members who voted against a bill to force religious universities and colleges that discriminate against LGBT people to reveal their discrimination.
Standards are very high in California. You have to have a 100% rating from Equality California or no endorsement. And they're very
good.
Successful.
By the way, Caitlyn Jenner was in Washington lobbying on trans issues, and she tried to talk to Ted Cruz.
Her
and
hero.
He scampered away and wouldn't talk to her.
That Orlando man we told you, Craig Allen Jungwirth, I guess, J-U-N-G, he was indicted in federal court. He made threats against the gay community to kill us, and if convicted, he faces a maximum 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine.
There was a case in Woodhaven, Queens, in New York City of a gay man who was murdered in 2011 by a gang, Anthony Caleo. He was 18. 4 people are in jail for that murder. 2 more have now confessed.
We have a picture of the latest transgender woman killed in this country. Crystal Edmonds, 32 years old, died Friday afternoon from a gunshot wound she received to the back of her head in Baltimore. They're recognizing this as the hate crime that it is, and they are, offering resources to people in the community, in the transgender community, who are under siege.
In New York City, again, the man Baina Lakim Al-Amin, who attacked a really obnoxious gay man he was having a fight with at a restaurant, and he hit him over the head with a chair, which was not good. He has gotten 9 years in prison and 3 years supervision after that for that assault. Now, I think he should be punished for that assault, but 9 years in prison, it's a very controversial case.
Nuts. A couple of good news notes I missed on education equality. Florida has announced the launch of a new statewide initiative to shift the culture so that each of the 67 school districts will be more responsive to gay kids. And the Michigan Board of Education voted 6-2 to approve guidelines designed to protect LGBT students. Take that, Alliance Defense Fund.
And Mary Looper in L.A., a somewhat butch lesbian, I think we have a picture, was booted out of a ladies' room at the Staples Center. That's Mary on the right.
With the I'm Not a Boy t-shirt.
Yes. She was trying to attend a Carrie Underwood concert, but she got kicked out of the ladies' room.
And what's going on? After Ellen, the lesbian pop culture blog is closing down after 14 years. They were bought by some big company. They didn't think they were making enough money, so they're shutting them down, from Viacom. In
Camden, New Jersey, the Catholic high school there first accepted and then rejected a trans boy, 12 years old. He offered to use the nurse's bathroom to change clothes, but the school said no and said, God is the creator, not us. You can't decide who you are.
In the primaries held in New York, a bunch of anti-gay bigot challengers were brushed back, and these people, some had over $1 million in donations from charter school people and private tax credit people. That was great.
Move on. You went to the Stubende parade.
Yes, this was the first. We have a picture. The first German LGBT group in the parade. We marched with a group called German Pulse. That's us there. That's us. That's our little band. We were very well received, but we were not the only gay group. Show the other picture. We saw this other group there, and I thought, from something called the Stadtguard, and I thought it was the Coast Guard. No, it's a gay travel group, and they were having a ball. So did we.
Can we move on to international news?
Yes, we can.
We have limited time.
Yes, we can. Big news from Botswana. they deported the U.S. pastor Stephen Anderson over his anti-gay views. When I say he's anti-gay, he goes over there and says, you should kill gay people. This is what he says. They threw him out of the country.
He had already been rejected by South Africa, and he said, that's okay, because I'm going to Botswana. And then he got to Botswana, and they kicked him out. More demonstrations coming up this weekend in Mexico over same-sex marriage. More trouble in Indonesia, which wants Apple and Google to remove LGBT-related apps from their stores. That'll be a dicey decision, although they have agreed to do that in other countries before.
In Spain, the first gay football ref, we got a picture of him, has returned to the game, and he was immediately threatened. He made because he talked about the calls, the anti-gay, things that he was getting, and he gets things like, you don't have long left to live, faggot.
He now has a 24-hour guard. In England, a member of the royal family has come out. Finally, the first one, Lord Ivor Mountbatten, 53 years old, a cousin of the Queen. That's him on the left.
And the great-great-great-grandson of Queen Victoria.
First royal to come out. He has an ex-wife and 3 kids. He says
they all get along.
Still struggling to be comfortable.
Yes.
And that's his partner.
In Australia, the Labour Party did firmly reject the idea of a plebiscite on same-sex marriage, so that will not happen. And the Conservative Party that runs the country in a coalition now, doesn't want to bring it up for a vote in Parliament.
In Belgrade, Serbia, 5,000 cops protected a few hundred pride marchers. Lots of politicians joined the march on our side.
In Russia, a court in Siberia banned one of Russia's most popular LGBT news sites, bluesystem.ru. No reason given, but they have laws against it there.
Let's move on to AIDS news.
Yes. And I mentioned the first woman in combat in the UK is a transgender woman.
The LGBT Center in New York City is going to run HIV support groups starting October 3rd for 10 weeks on Monday evenings. If you want to find out about them, email hivservices@gaycenter.org.
Sweden recently published research that shows they've got 90% of the HIV cases diagnosed. 99.8% of the people were linked to care, and 95% of the people taking antiretrovirals for the first 6 months had a viral load below 50 copies. So terrific advancement.
I don't know how you figure out you have 90% diagnosed, but whatever.
And the Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS flea market is this weekend in Schubert Alley
Entertainment
on Sunday.
news.
I saw a play called The Birds. It's at 5090 East 59th. It's for the birds.
Our old friend Jackie Woodson, who won the National Book Award for Young People's Literature, is now nominated for the National Book Award for Fiction for her new book, Another Brooklyn.
Jared Leto is going to play and is making a movie about Andy Warhol.
Strut is the new Oxygen series by Whoopi Goldberg on trans models. I looked at the first episode.
Out-gay director Moises Kaufman will be honored with the National Endowment for the Arts National Medal of Arts.
And at the Emmys, the funniest thing was Jeb Bush, I thought, in the limo.
But Jeffrey Tambor and Jill Soloway won for Transparent, and
Kate McKinnon
Jill
won.
Soloway really let everybody have it, including Trump calling him basically Hitler.
Sarah Paulson, shout out to her girlfriend Holland Taylor,
Ryan
Nina
Murphy
Jacobson.
for People vs. O.J. Simpson. And Gay Gotham, the art and underground culture in New York is coming to the Museum of the City of New York.
All right, Edward Albee.
Yeah.
We had the great privilege of having him here in 2005 for an interview.
By the way, up until a couple of days ago, he's the greatest living American playwright.
I loved his work. I studied in college reading it. He's the only guest I've ever asked for an interview, bringing in one of my old college paperbacks of his plays. But I liked what it said in the New York Times, quoting him. All of my plays are about people missing the boat, closing down too young, coming to the end of their lives with regret at things not done as opposed to things done. I find most people spend too much time living as if they are never going to die.
He was one of the few playwrights, and he was really dedicated to playwriting, who had a tremendous effect on the culture. changing the culture, I think.
He's someone. Hilton Alls talked about him being a descendant of Beckett and Ionesco,
Absolutely.
and I think there's a lot to that. When he was here, here's a story I haven't told on the air. We're sitting around before the interview, and we're chatting. And I say something, and he looks at me and he says, "You're a lesbian?" And I said, "This is Gay USA."
Yes.
And he says, "Oh, you're much too pretty to be a lesbian."
He says this. I tense. I think it's over. We're going home. We're not doing this. Anne's not doing this interview. But she laughs.
I thought it was hilarious.
She laughs.
He's look. I love and admire him far too much to take a stupid comment like that too seriously.
I admired his work so much. It was so much a part of my life, and you'll see that in our interview. We have the utmost respect for him, and it's what he was talking about politically in this interview that I hope that you'll really tune into, because you'll think, was this interview last week?
That's the thing. He and Gore Vidal were the two writers who I always wanted to hear talk about politics, because they were so astute and so cynical and so terrific.
He was out for so long as a gay man, and that made a difference. And I remember him being the few celebrities who would do gay benefits back in the early '80s. Yeah,
here are some other celebrity things he did. He appeared on Jeopardy giving a video clue.
Oh well, okay.
He appeared on a PBS Great Performances special about Judy Garland. I told you I was going to. He appeared on the Dinah Shore show.
Well,
the fact that he was
also
on Gay USA.
He won 4 Pulitzer Prizes. He won Tonys. He wrote some of the greatest plays in the 20th century.
He was a cranky guy who was just a delight to be around. I thought it was such a privilege to have him here. There was talk sometimes that he didn't like the movie adaptation of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I adored it. It's one of my favorite movies that if you haven't seen it, you really, really should watch Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. It is spectacular. But more spectacular at the moment, we have the great privilege of showing you our 2005 interview with Edward Albee.
And we welcome Edward Albee, 4 times voted the Pulitzer Prize for playwriting, recently represented on Broadway for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and now by Seascape with Francis Sternhagen and George Grizzard in a terrific production. Just published a new book of essays called Stretching My Mind. They're from 1960 to 2005, and just honored by Sage with their Lifetime Achievement Award. And at that dinner, you said that when you got their invitation, you realized you weren't middle-aged anymore. How is old age treating you?
Well, I was stretching middle age there a little bit. I'm 77 now. But I kept wondering when middle age would end. And when I got the letter from Sage inviting me to take this award because I'd become old, there it is. But I'm thinking of going back to middle age again.
You also said at that dinner that you've been out since you were 12.
Oh, yes. And maybe 11 and a half.
Well, tell people what it was like to accept yourself in 1940, essentially.
I don't know that there's anything strange about accepting your nature.
Well, in a world that teaches you that you're a sinful pervert, some people have a problem.
We just got a letter from a 75-year-old woman who said we're the first people that she told.
I was going to a boys' prep school. Only all boys.
Yes.
Oh, come on. No problem there.
But having sex is one thing. I was doing what
everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether I thought about, gee, this is who I am. I guess I was just thinking about, boy, am I having fun doing this.
Well, it's true. I was kissing one of my classmates at that age, but we called it practicing kissing.
Well,
it was only much later that I realized it was actually sex.
I don't think that we ever thought we were practicing. I think we thought we were really doing it.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into your...
And I don't recall ever having to make a transition from doing what was natural to doing what was going to be unaccepted. I always was sort of out of place in the adoptive environment that I was in. I didn't like my adoptive parents. I didn't like their values. They were bigots. They were racists, and they were Republicans. Even then, terrible things. And I didn't like them. And so I guess I thought that it would be nice to be as different from them as possible, but I don't think that persuaded me to stay being gay. I was perfectly happy with it.
Well, but in those days, you described Republicans as boring in a delicate balance.
They
and it's
were.
actually one of the things that you changed in a recent production where you called them vicious.
Vicious, yes, yes. Yes, I
Because
did.
you
yeah.
didn't-
Not,
you didn't-
was the word vicious? I can't remember.
Something as vicious as ever, I think, is what you said.
No, there's another word there, but
Yeah?
it doesn't matter. Something
Okay.
far away from boring, yes.
Yes, because they're
Yes.
not boring anymore.
Well, and I grew up in the same kind of atmosphere with the Republican parents who were maybe not quite as vicious, but certainly along the same spectrum. And we look at the world today in the United States we live in, and it's not a pretty place.
You know what happened, I think? I have a theory about
Please.
how the Republicans finally got in power and allowed them to try to destroy everything the New Deal accomplished, which is what they're after, you know.
Yeah.
Destroy democracy, too. Make the country safe, but by destroying democracy. I think somewhere along the line, one of those Republicans got the bright idea, you know, all these working class people are voting against us. They're voting Democratic. Let's tell them they're not working class. Let's tell them they're middle class. The middle class is more reactionary. And so they told the working class they were middle class, and they started getting Republican majorities.
Yes, well,
I think
they
it's that
certainly
simple.
have. And those
So
are
the
people
Democrats
that-
should just remind the middle class that they're really working class, and we'll keep winning elections again.
And not so many of them are working these days,
That's true.
given the economy.
The non-working class, we
Yeah,
call it. yes.
exactly.
Well, let's talk about your work.
Okay.
There's an excellent biography of you by the late Mel Gussow of the New York Times called Edward Albee, A Singular Journey. Well, what was the journey like for you to playwriting? Because your first play was produced when you were about 30 years old, yes?
Written when I was
The
28.
Zoo Story.
Well, I started writing when I was 8, poetry. I got a little better, not much, as the years went on. I quit that 20 years later. I wrote 2 terrible novels in my teens. Short story and I had very different ideas about its nature. And I was a creative writer, which merely meant I didn't have to worry about being able to think coherently in a straight line, so I didn't do essays very well. But I was a writer. So I took 10 years off, left home, I really got thrown out of my adoptive environment.
You're like 18.
Yeah, moved to Greenwich Village as early as I could get out of there. I tried to leave when I was 12, but I didn't get very far. And moved to Greenwich Village and educated myself in life and the arts for 10 years. And then took up playwriting again, wrote a play called The Zoo Story. Yeah.
Which was, by the way, performed at my high school in 1968, a Catholic boys' school, in front of the entire student body. I almost fell out of my chair. You helped me come out a lot with
Catholic
that.
boys' school,
Yes, Chaminade High School on Long Island. Yes.
gonna tell us
I
about
didn't get
some-
any action there.
You
Other people-
didn't?
Other people were. I didn't
Oh.
even know where it was going on. I made up for it when I got to college.
Students,
Don't worry.
priests, nothing?
Nothing.
Gee.
My best friend was solicited by one of the brothers, but he didn't tell me about that till later.
What I love about your work is the extent to which you are an iconoclast and provocative and daring and disturbing, you're described as by other people. I'm curious as to how, in your mind, you make the leap to decide to do it that way rather
Well,
than
I get
more
up in the morning.
conventional
I get
ways.
up in the morning, and I have my coffee, and then I sit down. and I said, "Now I must be iconoclastic." Now
Well,
I'm-
exactly. But,
no, the responsibility.
but you know, people write in very conventional ways
Some
and call
people do.
themselves
Some
writers,
people
and
do.
you are unique.
It seems to me that if you don't write something, or paint something, or compose something that makes people think a little bit differently about themselves and their lives, you're wasting your own time and theirs. The arts are there to make us see things better, more clearly, differently. And if you're supposed to do that, then you want to shake people up a little bit.
Do you see a lot of theater these days?
Far too much, always.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going.
I walked out of The Odd Couple. I know exactly what you mean.
You saw the odd.
Yeah. Oh, that would be a compliment.
You didn't see the couple. I said,
No, I didn't see anything other than horror.
But when Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf was first on Broadway in 1962, it really caused what I would call an explosion in the theater. What effect did you see it having on theater and on the society? Because I mean, you were on the cover of like news magazines and things like that for this. I mean, and of of course, were voted the Pulitzer Prize by the Drama Committee. What effect did you see it having? And were you surprised by it?
You're asking me to go back quite a ways to remember this. Maybe I said, wow, or isn't this fun? Or, gee, maybe a playwright can change a few things. Maybe I thought those things. I don't remember.
Well, you did more than that, though, because you made a lot of money off that play, and you plowed a lot of it into helping young playwrights and artists.
Well, I established a foundation. I didn't want to give it to the government, you know. Established a foundation for where young writers and painters and composers and sculptors can live and work out in Montauk. And I've been supporting that for 35 years now.
And we should say that it's the Albee Foundation. We have it up there on the screen there .org, right?
I guess.
And
I don't use internet or whatever that was.
Good for you. You're better off. And but it is up there, and you can read all about it and how to apply if you'd like to be an artist in residence. You don't just have to be a writer. You can be a musician.
Yeah, of course. Talent and need. Those are the two things we ask.
Any kind of an artist.
That was, of course, a major movie, which you may or may not be happy with, but not...
Which, my foundation?
No, Virginia Woolf, sorry, taking a step back. You haven't done a ton of work with film or TV.
I've had 2 plays made into movies, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and A Delicate Balance.
Right.
Which I think was a somewhat better film.
Yes.
I thought it was terrific.
Paul Scofield,
Yes.
Catherine Hepburn, and the great Kate Reid.
Yes.
The interesting thing about both of those films is there was no destructive screenplay. In both occasions, they shot the play that I wrote without changing it, without distorting it. That was pretty lucky, pretty unusual too. And that's why I keep insisting on that when occasionally the movie studio will knock on my door and say, we want to make a movie of this or that. I say, okay, but I write the screenplay and I have control over it.
And they don't want to do that?
No, they say, go, bye-bye.
Do you have any...
You see, we get spoiled as playwrights.
Well...
We have copyright.
Yeah.
They can't change a word of what we write. In
but the interpretation and the production gets a little out of your...
We also, in our contract, playwrights, have control of director and actors. So we choose the director, we choose the actors.
So have you been uniformly happy with the productions of your plays?
Far more than chance would have it. There are 3 actors. I'm not going to tell you who they are.
Oh, come on.
No,
just between us.
I won't. No, sure, yeah. Who I tell everybody never to work with.
Really?
But considering the hundreds of actors I've worked with, I've been pretty fortunate.
That is a good batting
average. Most of them are good people.
Do you not have any desire to reach a larger audience on television, say?
I would love to reach a larger audience intact, but I don't want my work to be cut, to be censored in any way.
It must be very depressing to see that happen.
Well, I don't want to. Life is too short to involve yourself in that. I would rather reach a smaller number of people with my ideas intact than have to compromise or sell out. I don't believe in that.
You want to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. When
that's why we haven't sold out.
Well, we're also not making any money.
Yeah, maybe we can talk to you about that.
I believe you said once that the theme of Virginia Woolf was that the ideals of the American Revolution are dead.
Well, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
People kept asking me, what's the play about?
Well, the play is the play.
It's about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I usually say, about 2.5 hours. But then I said, oh, it's about the failures of the principles of the American Revolution. And somebody took that seriously.
Okay.
Well, you know,
But it's also true, not about the play, but about this country.
Oh, yeah,
it turns out to be true. And I did name George and Martha after George and Martha Washington. And Nick was named after Nikita Khrushchev, who was running the Soviet Union at the time that I wrote the play.
And Honey?
That's not her name, you know.
Oh.
I don't know what her name is. He calls her Honey.
Oh.
Hey, Honey.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what her name is. Phyllis, maybe.
Yeah. Oh,
name.
there's a little nugget for us. You were famously, you know, they went on about, oh, it's really a gay couple, and you said, leave me alone.
That's so strange.
It is strange, but here's my question. How do you feel about writing straight couples? The older I get, the less I know about heterosexual relationships and the more mysterious they seem to be.
If the relationship is run intelligently among two people who care about each other, I don't notice very much difference between straight and gay relationships. My life partner, 35 years we were together, he died 6 months ago. I guess we were married. We had a wonderful relationship.
Yes.
And I didn't notice that our straight couple friends were treating us any differently than, at least to our faces.
Oh, no, we would argue that you're probably better and luckier than most straight couples.
Maybe the only difference is a gay couple can break up when the relationship is over without a lot of extraneous stuff hanging on there.
Well, except that we're now launching ourselves into too much responsibility and ties with marriage.
I think any couple that's been together for a while, straight or gay, should have the same rights of inheritance, of various protections and hospitalization and freedom to interact after the person is dead. I think everybody should have that.
Sure.
I don't really care about the concept of marriage, church marriage. That doesn't interest me, because I don't see why gay people want to pretend to be straight people.
Exactly. Well, you have been involved politically over the years.
Oh, sure,
with
always.
the Democratic Party a lot. What's your evaluation of what we would regard as a sorry lot these days?
It is so troubling that the Republicans have been allowed to run rampant because of money, basically.
Yes.
They are so wealthy. They have so much more money to spend. Combine that with an electorate that is badly informed for the most part. Most people don't even know who their senators are, who their representatives are.
It's shocking.
And the Republicans own so many television stations, so many newspapers. They just inundate people with misinformation, wrong information. And also we have an electorate these days that really doesn't want to have the boat rocked in any way.
No, they want a benevolent patriarch who's going to take care of them.
There was a poll taken, which really shocked me, by the New York Times, bless it, a few years ago. And it asked about 5,000 people the following really tricky question. Would you be willing to give up the Bill of Rights for some security? And 75% said yeah. Which means, A, they don't know what the Bill of Rights is, because it's the only security we have.
Exactly.
Or if they did know what the Bill of Rights was, they were willing to give up democracy for the illusion of safety.
But they're also giving up middle-class entitlements like public education and university education, which in my day was virtually free.
The two-tier educational system in this country is disgraceful. 5% of the people get a halfway decent education, and they tend mostly to be white and upper middle class. It's preposterous.
But in your
and
book,
what does this have to do with America? We're going to be 50% non-white in 20 years.
Right.
And already far past that in places like New York or California.
Of course.
But in your book, Stretching My Mind, your new book of essays just out from, well, publisher is,
Look on the spine.
Who knows?
We'll say Carol and Graf. Oh, that helps them look it up on the internet.
Honey and Nick.
Carol and Graf.
Phyllis.
In your essay on your late partner Jonathan Thomas, which is more about the arts and his work, but you talk about the corruption of the arts. You say we need a holding action against the corruption of our art values. What are you talking about?
The assumption, and this is true in all of the arts, that popularity equals value. That if something makes a lot of money, it's better than something that doesn't make a lot of money. The assumption that popularity and income have anything to do with what really matters. It's a terrible corruption. People become famous for being famous. Things become famous for being famous. And it gets in the way of a proper use of the arts.
Well, we started to talk earlier about what theater, for instance, you see these days.
As always, I've been going to the theater ever since I was a kid. And since the invention of off-Broadway and off-Broadway, I always see a lot better stuff off-Broadway and off Broadway than I do on Broadway.
Anything that occurs to you, anybody whose work you admire these days?
I'm terrible remembering names, and I didn't bring my list with me, but there's a play that's been running for over a year now, off-Broadway, or off-Broadway, I don't remember which, by a fellow named Will Eno, called Tom Paine. It's closing finally. I think it's in this last few weeks now. Wonderful play by a really bright, marvelous young playwright. He couldn't have gotten that play on Broadway in a million years.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about one of your more recent plays, The Goat, or Who is Sylvia. You said in your essays that when you told friends you were working on it, you told them what it was about, you were met by hostility and condemnation. Clearly, I was onto something.
Yes. Hey, that's a good idea. If they hate it, wow.
Really? I mean, people really in your circle...
Now, some people were good friends of mine, actually, were worried that the play was so outrageous that it would do serious damage to my career. You know,
how could your career be damaged?
I don't know.
Point? You are, I think you're.
No, they're being protective. Yeah. And you can be protected to death.
We should be clear with the audience. We're talking about the bestiality.
It's a husband of a woman who decides who has an affair with a goat.
He doesn't decide to have an affair
with
a goat. He meets this goat, and the goat and he fall in love with each other.
That's right.
Yes. Right. And they have a sexual relationship and an emotional rapport, yes. And the wife doesn't take too well to this.
No, she doesn't.
Well, now you make me feel bad.
Nor is the gay son terribly happy about it either.
Right. Well, and I don't want to give the whole thing away, but he ends up kissing his daddy, right?
Yeah, he's a sweet kid. I like him a lot.
He is a sweet kid. Billy, I think his name is.
Billy, yes, of course.
It makes me feel bad.
As in Goat.
I have an ex-roommate who was a filmmaker, and he wanted to make his first film about an affair he wanted to have with his father. And I said, maybe not for your first film, but you should have let him do it.
You should have. You conservative.
I'm not.
Well, I thought it was a thrilling
Maybe you didn't think his father would be any good in bed. I don't know.
The play was thrilling because it was so provocative and daring. But we sat in the theater listening to the audience laugh a lot at it. We thought inappropriately, or
whether there
the
can be
laughter
such a
stopped
thing.
after a certain point. The play is outrageous, and,
it is.
and the people are intelligent, and so they're capable of being heavily ironic and sardonic, and that produces laughter. But eventually, the laughter's got a choke in your throat, and you stop doing it.
That also happened with the latest production of Virginia Woolf, because I think when people come to the theater now, they think they want to, if it's got any comedy in it all, it's a sitcom, and they become the laugh track, and all of a sudden they didn't know quite how to react when some of the really serious things started to develop in that. I'm not crazy about audiences
Any
these days.
play that's humorless is a waste of time. That's why I prefer Chekhov to Ibsen, for example. I find Ibsen, boringly humorless. But then again, I've never seen his work in Norwegian.
And people think, and Chekhov, of course, described his plays as comedies, even though we sometimes treat them rather lugubriously.
Oh boy, we sure do.
Yes. You also called in the essays the 1960s the decade of engagement. But so what are the uh-ohs?
Well, we had a whole generation of young people who were politically involved. Liberal and leftist young kids who wanted to change our society. And that got driven out of them pretty quick.
It did. It seems like a mere
We may have it again
time.
when they institute the draft.
Well, I'd like to think something would provoke this population. It's very frustrating as,
They wouldn't dare invoke the draft now. They wouldn't dare do it.
No, they probably wouldn't. But they've dared to do everything else.
I mean, they can't get enough people over to Iraq as it is. Yeah. And if they had the draft, of course, that would probably cause some riots.
I waver between optimism and pessimism as I look at today's politics and wonder whether you see hope that our long national nightmare is coming to an end, or are we stuck with this for the end of time?
I wish I knew the answer to that. I'm afraid that it's going to take, it should take something other than the fact that we're losing an awful lot of soldiers in Iraq. It should take something other than that. It should take an awareness that these Republicans, they're destroying democracy. They're not interested in anything except wealthy people, and they're undoing the New Deal. An informed electorate would throw them out of office. if it takes an electorate that is uninformed but is still angry about soldiers getting killed, whatever it takes to get them out of office, we'll be fine.
Well,
I don't care what it takes.
Even here in sophisticated New York, I mean, people seem to want to be governed by a billionaire businessman, you know.
Well, I also don't think that you should be able to buy elections.
Well,
that would be nice if we get that press for. Now,
Yeah.
Seascape is up on Broadway right now, and I think it's very timely. I don't want to give away the surprise for people, but it has something to do with evolution.
It does indeed.
Any-
Yes. And I wrote the play because, having looking around at people, I was beginning to wonder whether or not evolution had really taken place,
well,
and whether or not the so-called lower forms of life might not be a little smarter than we are.
well, and 30 years ago when it opened, it was greeted as a totally outrageous production,
of
and
course.
now it seems to be seen as a much milder event.
Even though evolution is under
Yeah.
attack now from the
Kansas
the
School Board.
know-nothings.
Any
Yeah,
plans
Andy
for
wants
a
this
special
performed.
showing for this Kansas School Board? It would give them something to think about.
Don't be silly.
He's often silly.
I am silly.
I mean, no, come on, think. Don't expect these people to think.
Well, speaking of thinking, why did you decide to release these essays now?
They called me up and said, "You have all these essays. What do
We
you
want to
plan-"
make money off you.
Yeah, we want to make money off you.
Well,
And I said, I better read them again. And I took some of them out when I thought I was really being a fool or contradicting myself too much. And I left in 42 of the pieces. Some of them are very brief. Some of them are only a page long. Others are 8 or 10 pages.
most of them about artists and playwrights, but
Yeah.
others as well.
And all creative, a lot of creative people, and some on politics, and some on the aesthetics of the arts. I read them over, and I thought, these aren't too stupid. Maybe it will be informative.
Maybe we should rerun some old shows sometimes. Take a couple of weeks
Please.
off.
So a couple of weeks ago, I'm playing golf in Westchester, and I go out to golf courses by myself and get paired up with whoever is around. And I'm playing with a couple of middle-aged women, and they ask me what I do, and I tell them about the show, and I say, I'm very happy because we've just learned that Edward Albee is going to be our guest in a couple of weeks. And they said, Edward Albee?
They don't say who.
There's a housing complex in Larchmont named after him.
Well, it's not named after me. It's named after my adoptive paternal grandfather who ran the Keith Albee vaudeville circuit, and he put a lot of money into things in the town of Larchmont,
Well,
libraries and
That
things like
explains
that.
the great mystery.
Not named after me.
Well, I had to check that out.
I don't think anything should be named after living people. That's what so annoys me about all these theaters and auditoriums and art galleries that are being named after live donors.
Right?
Well, then they change them 20 years later when someone else comes along with
Oh,
more
sure,
money.
yeah, of
Or
course
the
they do.
person becomes too corrupt, although they've never taken the J. Edgar Hoover name off the FBI.
They're
building.
talking about it now.
They are? Finally?
Yeah, they're thinking
Really?
about it, yes.
Why? Probably because he has a touch
Only
of
because he was
pink or
supposed to be
something.
gay, not,
Right.
not because he was an evil man.
No, heavens no.
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 Right.
Well,
It's always
put
for the
up Ed Meese's
it's always
name.
for the wrong reasons. I mentioned that you are very nurturing of up-and-coming playwrights. Is there anybody out there that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, a few, but I can never remember names. Yeah, sure. We have, the problem is not having enough good young playwrights. We've got a lot of good young playwrights. The problem is getting critics to go and review them, and audiences to get in line to go see their work. Most people prefer the safe and the predictable.
I do worry about audiences these days. Most of them look like us. I mean, gray heads, et cetera. What's going to bring young people in?
I don't know what will. You have to bring tickets way down.
Yeah.
You have to bring tickets down to the same prices as movies, perhaps, maybe even less to get them in.
Well, they've done that in Britain in some cases.
That helps sometimes. But, I keep hoping that television and movies are going to get so bad that people will be driven into the theater.
To find out what's going on.
There's an optimist for you.
Absolutely.
well-
Can't you see the theater and reality shows?
No, that's all fake.
Well, it
But
has become so, certainly, as people have gotten used to the formula and are sort of, it's sort of surreal the way they're commenting on or aware of the device and the construct and then going ahead and playing it out.
It's not real.
Okay.
What's next for
There's
you?
nothing real about reality. I'm working on 2 plays, one about identical twins, one of whom has a doppelganger. That's called Me, Myself, and I. And another one that I don't have a title for. I don't want to talk about any of them.
Okay.
What if I'm wrong?
I
never talk about my plays before I finish them because I might be wrong.
Well,
and then there's a period of about 2 weeks after I finish a play that I know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'm just guessing as much as anybody else is.
Well, in general, at 77, do you see yourself writing for another 50 years? Do you feel that you're coming to some point at which you want to stop?
Well, they won't be able to take the computer away from me since I write longhand.
Yes.
So I can probably keep on doing it as long as I have paper. Yeah, I'll keep on writing as long as I think I have something interesting to write about. And I might eventually prove to be wrong. I hope I'll know when to stop.
Well, but it's quite encouraging and thrilling that you have found new things to write about for all this time.
Well, I keep thinking they're new. Who knows?
This is Thanksgiving night for our New York viewers and for some of our viewers nationally. We've been very negative here tonight, but about a lot of things. Well, about our state of our country and in some cases some of the arts.
With good reason.
Things to be thankful for in 2005 at this stage.
Yes, there are.
Yeah. Any want to name? Can you remember any of their names?
People or things?
People or things that are happening or things that encourage you.
I think it's fortunate that we still have a democracy to be worried about. I think it's fortunate that we're still permitted to vote. I think it's fortunate that maybe enough other countries are beginning to despair of how we conduct our government and our business that we might be forced to change whether we want to or not. There are things to be thankful for, yes.
And do you pay attention to what we would call gay issues or gay politics or the state of gay people in the world today?
Sure. How can you turn your back on it? No.
Well, some people don't.
Yeah, sure, of course.
And what do you think about that progress or where we're going or where we are?
I think that we should, if we can ever get to the point that nobody is going to be thinking about it, which is what we're after, is it not?
Absolutely.
Then we'll get there. We're nowhere near it, for heaven's sake.
No, I mean we can't retire.
The so-called Christian right, which has double virtues, that is neither Christian nor right.
Exactly.
Those people will make it very, very difficult for us.
Not to mention the Vatican.
Well,
that's part of the Christian right.
Yeah,
for sure.
They invented it.
Part of the alliance with the United States makes at the UN was the Vatican and the Muslim world on social issues and trying to keep all population things from coming to the fore. I understand that you introduced Howard Dean at a gay Democratic fundraiser in the summertime.
I don't think I introduced him. We were both speaking.
I see.
We were both speaking.
I heard you gave a great speech, but nobody has the transcript.
No, I don't write things down. I speak off the cuff all the time. I was concerned that Senator Kerry had dropped completely out of sight right after the election, as if the issues that he was addressing no longer existed. He just lost. Maybe he didn't even lose the election. Who knows? Ohio is a strange state.
Yes.
But he dropped out completely, as if he didn't exist and the issues didn't exist anymore.
It was very strange.
And that troubled me a lot. I wrote him a letter. I don't know if he ever got it, because he never answered me, saying, you're meant to be leader of the loyal opposition. Come on, start opposing.
Well, it is strange, because he seemed a sort of reluctant leader for a long time, almost as if he thought he should run, but didn't necessarily have the real passion to do it.
Anyway, that was what my speech was about, that we must not shut up, that we really have to keep hammering at people the fault, why they voted incorrectly, and the stuff they really voted for, and aren't you sorry you did it? And Dean was talking about something totally different. He made a very interesting speech about the fact that the only way the Democrats are going to be able to ever get back in power is to appeal to those people who are voting Republican now.
Well, certainly.
And are not happy voting Republican.
Yes.
But are doing it anyway.
Well, I think the Democrats have abdicated leadership that certainly could be much more powerful.
See, I grew up as an unreconstructed, liberal being a dirty word now, but a left-wing Democrat, you know. I believe in a number of the socialist issues of public support and public reform and those things. And I don't know what our party stands for half the time.
Well, very little anymore. And is Hillary Clinton the savior of all this?
I don't know that I would call anybody a savior. Be very interesting to see who. I have a couple of people that I think are just as interesting as Hillary Clinton, as though she's very bright and she's done some good work. The governor of New Mexico.
Bill Richardson.
Yeah, he's a very, very interesting mind.
Yes,
very interesting guy.
And fairly pro-gay.
Yep.
I mean, signed an executive order for domestic partner benefits when he signed the gay rights law.
I think Biden is an interesting man, too.
I hope Hillary gets a primary from the left.
In spite of his plagiarism, I would think as a writer you'd hate that.
Was he a plagiarist?
Who are you talking about?
Joe Biden.
Did he plagiarize?
No, he plagiarized a speech of Neil Kinnock.
The Irish.
That's why he had to drop, not Irish, British Labour leader. He had to drop out of the campaign because they ran this tape side by side.
Really?
Yes.
He shouldn't have
copied
done that.
this
Sorry
speech.
I mentioned him.
No,
No, I don't like plagiarists at all.
No, we don't like that.
No. You still teaching in Houston?
No, I gave that up when Jonathan, my partner, got so sick the last 2 years with cancer. I couldn't go down there anymore.
But what was that like all these years? I mean, you spent a lot of time there.
I spent 15 years teaching young playwrights about how to be themselves and not giving in to commercial pressures. And that was instructive. I learned a lot about teaching, and I learned a lot about playwriting from doing that. But 15 years is enough. Lanford Wilson took over the job for me, and Lanford is a good teacher and a good playwright.
It is so difficult to convince people to take the leap of faith to be themselves. People recoil from that.
Yeah, because there you are standing naked in front of the world.
But
And some people don't like to be naked. I'm fond of it.
well, I agree completely, and I think you know, my little mantra is that in terms of, for instance, being out about being gay, that you're safer, more successful, and happier being yourself and taking that.
Also, there's the terrible thing of having to lie and remember your lies.
Who can do it?
Who can?
You don't have to have a long memory if you
And
tell the truth all the
being gay is
time.
nothing to have to lie about or be embarrassed about or anything.
Oh, we're very lucky and proud.
Well, we hope that people out there will be impressed by your success having done that, and we hope that they will pick up a copy of Edward Albee, Stretching My Mind, which is your new book of essays out from Carol
And go
Graff.
see Seascape at the
Yes,
Broadway.
Seascape.
Seascape is playing at the Booth Theater on Broadway, and it's a wonderful production. I had a wonderful time there, and we look forward to more in the years to come. And thank you so much for being with us, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks for making it a good time.
Oh, thank you very much. And we'll be back next week.